Into my creosote oil tank. So that one's fine. Where's my other ender tank? I made 2, I swear I did. I know I made 4 of these blocks. That's so weird. It just vanished on me. No idea. Okay, flower pouch, give me some more red. Why do you have creosote oil in you? Random 32 millibuckets of creosote oil in here for some reason. Deleted! Maybe because I right-clicked on something. Okay, let's go triple red. Okay, triple red, I don't think there's anything inside triple red. Nothing's in triple red, right? Yeah, you're empty. Okay, and then we can put a fluid pipe on top. Ta-da! And then we can connect to the ender tank for infinite lava whenever I need it. I suspect that I'm still generating more than enough for this. I just need to connect to this instead. And we've got half a bucket just flowing right now, and we've got ourselves a nice Bernie boy doing Bernie things. Yay! Okay. So we'll slap down the cow in a jar. Bonk. And pipe out from the cow in a jar. We got milk in container. That's good. We'll get 2 oak drawers. One of these is locked. Well, it's okay if it's locked, to be honest. We go boom and boom and boom, and we can do this because we care not about other bits, and then we just go botany pots, and we'll just unlock this because I don't care to have it locked right now. It doesn't need to be locked. Okay, you can be sugarcane. You can be cocoa bean. Alright, and now you've got cocoa beans, and then you just get some... Oh, darn, is it sugarcane or is it... Darn, is it sugarcane or is it sugar that I need? I need sugar. It's a good way to do this. Can I just hook up a mechanical crafter and get away with it? I think I might be able to do that. Let me just hook up a mechanical crafter. I think if it's got nowhere to go, it won't do anything, but let's do a void upgrade on the drawer. We'll need to make another drawer. Because it occurs to me that I need sugar, not sugar cane. So if I just do the mechanical crafter here, pointing that way, with a void upgrade on this drawer. That's not what I wanted. Void upgrade on that drawer. Okay. Right. And then we go... I don't think these drawers can auto-export, so we'll have to pull out the contents on its own. So we'll slap it down. Let's slap down an item type here instead. And we can do this. And then we go sugar... Oh, nope, that blocks what I want to do. I want to connect it here, which means I need a gearbox. Doesn't matter what direction it rotates. I need a shaft and a cog. Let's turn on the crafter first, shall we? Right? Otherwise it's not going to work. Ideally speaking, I still want to connect it here, but it means we'll have to put the drawer here. Because I need to access the top of this drawer with the hopper pot. Because hopper pots don't work. They don't hopper. Oops. They don't hopper unless you hopper from the top. And I don't mind if you don't have a void upgrade because you just empty out when you're done. And with a void upgrade, just in case I stop generating milk. And in the meantime, let's just give it a influx of sugar. I'll just give it a chunk of sugar like right now. Also, here's the question. Yeah, I have all the bits I need, so we can just do this now. There we go, it's making chocolate. And then it's turning the chocolate into stuff. Cool. And then we do this, and then we make one more drawer for the chocolate bars, and then that one we're going to lock. So this one we're going to lock with chocolate. We'll also take the buckets of chocolate, because we can now do things with that. Put the bars of chocolate down, put the lock it, and then we set this to extract. Thank you. And then we can just use up those buckets of chocolate, which I don't need anymore. And ta-da! We have a bunch of chocolate generation going on. Hooray! We can make chocolate. Let's make a bunch of drawers, because that way we can start setting up the piping for that in advance. Pretty sure I only need 5, because there's 6 objects and one of them is a fluid. Like that. Okay, and then we go bump, 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 and oops, bump. Okay, we're gonna lock all of these because I am absolutely going to do weird things about this. Alright, which one gets chocolate? Chocolate is 4. Chocolate on step 4. Give me these. It is Elite Control Advanced Component. Then it is chocolate. Oh, why are you... Wrench, please. Thanks. In deploy mode. Cool. And then you are... I need the range add-ons. I'll get to that in a second. And then we need some Draconic Integrals, which is more Dragon Steel. Oh my god, I need so much Dragon Steel. I'm going to have to go back into the Nether and get some more. Because look, it needs 4 Netherite dust too. Oh my god, it needs so much just for the one. How many do I need? 4, 8, 12, 16, 18, 19, 20. I need 20. 20 per frame. What is this? I'm hitting that point of just like, okay, what the F? Ooh. Alright, I'm gonna need liquid hydrogen. I'm gonna need a... Needs more ender tanks. Alright, let's get some cyan, shall we? I like to make them nice indicative colors, so cyan seems to be a good one. Light blue, do we have cyan? We have some cyan, let's do cyan. We'll get as much as we can set up right now, but I'm running out of steam here. Alright, so I've got a tank full of liquid stuff over here. So I'll just connect it to a fluid pipe here. Very quick. Right? And then we can jam a bucket of liquid hydrogen chloride in there. Used to be a banker, but I lost interest. Hey, that's actually pretty appropriate. I'm actually starting to lose interest in this pack. It's actually getting really frustrating. Not like impossibly so, just a little bit annoying. If you know what I mean. There we go. Alright, now we can connect this to the other end here. Because I have, like, you understand, like, this is a giant tangle of devices that all do something that I need. This whole thing. This is why I did an outside build this time. I just needed all of the space. There's a lot of stuff. Okay, so far so good. I need to go into the nether now. I can't even make a... I'm gonna have to teleport it to the nether depth. So we zip into the nether depths and hunt around for a while with my disassembler. Let me refill my, my battery, I guess. Oh, I can't charge it with that because I didn't make a cube yet. That didn't take a lot of energy. Alright, so I go into the nether and I just zip up some more netherite because I need 40. You hear me? 40 netherite total in order to do this. And then I can make netherite for you. That's a lot of netherite. Maybe I can make one of these setups in the nether. Can these do netherite? Debris. It would be debris. I can get ancient debris from... I can get it from an orchid. I might do. Pixie dust. Greed and pride. That's going to take a lot of mana. Ultimately, I think it's better to do it with this, because the netherite dust is 2 for 1, and then 1 for 3. So, at best, I'm -1 on that. I don't think there's any other method of getting it. I could do a dimensional mineshaft from occultism, but it's going to take me a bit of time to get there. I would have to make some steps. And also, they despawn after a while, which is kind of annoying. So I think the laser drill is my go-to. So I make like a bunch more of these laser drills and an ore laser base. The ore laser base I should be able to do easily enough. And we make 6 brown laser lenses. set you to y equals to whatever, and we just put it like right inside my nether spawn, and then chunk load it. And then what can you get me in the nether? Because you have to be in the nether. Any nether biome will do it, but it has to be in the nether. Oh, I wish I could specialize it. Because you can get iridium, but I don't care. I'll get nether quartz too, eh? Ender chests? I think ender chests or tesseracts is the solution. And then brown focus, because if I use brown focus, it'll cut down the chances of getting nether quartz. I don't think I get anything else out of that, do I? In fact... the end of the void, small end barrens and highlands and midlands. Like, technically get coal out of there, I guess. The void? I'm sorry, what? There's a void? Teleporter? No, I don't think there is. What is the void? I just had a half a... Someone is voice calling me. Man, I'm getting a lot of those, I'm getting a lot of scam calls lately. I don't know what's causing it. So that one was the automatic robocall. We see an order on your Amazon account with this random number of iPhone 11. I'm like, what? Wait, what? So let's make an ore laser, and we'll see if we can just do that. Ore laser base. All I need is this, because I actually kept some deep slate iron. I can make more, because I can get the raw iron, and that's easily enough to do. So now I need a laser drills, which I need to make more simple machine frames for, which is not difficult, ultimately. However, we're just going to do a buttload of compressed iron gears. Thanks. Alright, give me plastic. Give me... Was it bronze or copper? Bronze. Alright, so we're doing the gears, but then we can do the plate, then we can do all the things. Yeah. We're going to do... How many of these ore lasers do you think I should do? Oh, I am going to need a tesseract, actually, because I need to get power in there, too. I should be able to do tesseract, and then we can just... We can pipe items through it, too. I should be able to. So I just need to hook it up relatively closely, and we can pull the ancient debris out and put them into, like, this drawer or something. And theoretically, the only thing I'm getting out of this stuff is the ancient debris. So we'll do 16. I think I've got 16 over here as well, so it's the same setup as that, except like this. I will make some diamond gears as well. Because once I'm done the one thing, I'm going to need the other thing. Compressed stone. Once I'm done making the simple machine frames, I'm also going to need to make some upgrades for these machines as well. So add on... Like, I'm also going to need to make some of these range add-ons, but let's do efficiency 2 and speed 2, which is another thing I need. I know those will need diamond gears. Since I'm doing 16, pretty sure I need 32 diamond gears for that, because I need 2 each. So I've got 16 gears per 8. So I need the full stack of gears, as it turns out. And we'll need some blaze rods and some sugar. So how much sugar have we got? Not enough crafted, but there we go. Alright, I'll need a stack of that. You can start on this, I suppose. Because we've got enough for some. I don't know if that's enough total, but boom, 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 boom. Plastic. No, plastic's in there, right? No, we're missing plastic. Let's grab the plastic. I need more plastic! Nope, I've got plastic. They just ended up in a different slot. Plastic, get, is fine. Okay. I need... blaze rods. I have to kill some more blazes. I will need sugar. I will need glass. Canes, as a matter of fact. And I am making... What is it, 16, right? I'm making 16, which means I need a full stack of the glass panes. I'll need a full stack of all of these things. And redstone. The only thing I don't need a full stack of is the sugar and the blaze rod, because those are different between the two. So I only need half a stack of sugar and half a stack of blaze rods. So let's go kill some blazes. Give me fortune sword. Enderman, wither skeleton, blaze. I wonder if there's a way to transfer enchantments. Oh god, there's so many of you. Turn it off! Is there a way, do you think, to transfer enchantments from one tool to another? I know there ought to be a way to do it. I would like to strip the enchantments off of my sword, my really crazy sword, and put it on my refined obsidian machete. Because I know it can be enchanted. Similarly, I would like to extract the enchantments off of one of those really crazy armor pieces that the trade NPC can sometimes give you, and put those on my armor. There are so many blazes that I cannot actually see what I'm doing. Thank you. Do you think that's enough blaze rods? For now. Might be able to make a blaze seed out of that. those away, put that away, keep these, put that away, put that away. I'm done. I've run out of machine frames. Because I guess I overcrafted. Let's do some more of those, I guess. Does not hurt to do extra. Let's do another 16. Because that is how many I have parts for. And it doesn't hurt to just have a bunch of simple machine frames on hand. You never know. Okay. And then once this is done... Okay, and because I feel like this isn't fast enough now. I need a pipe upgrade. 2, actually. Probably not 2, but... It doesn't hurt to have 2. Okay, and then we go wrench, disconnect this, disconnect that, boop that, and then boop that. And then we just boop and boop. And that should now just keep this permanently filled. So now it's not going to stop while it refills. It's just going to go. I will eventually set this up with an AE2 system, and then this whole thing will become obsolete, of course. But what we're going to do is we're going to make, like, 2 dissolution chambers, maybe even more. I think there's still some recipes with the dissolution chamber that need ether gas. Let me just double check. Latex, latex, latex. Ether. Yeah, see, we need a little bit of ether gas for some things. I just don't know if we're ever going to use them. Mycelial reactor? I don't think there's actually anything with that uses the ether gas that I care for. There doesn't appear to be anything that I could do with ether gas. Let me take a look here. Ether gas. I mean, aside from making creative blaze cakes. Yeah, the ether gas is only used for the reactor and the nuke. I know I can use ether gas for something. But I guess not. There's not much I can use the ether gas for. So I guess I'm only going to need 2 of these dissolution chambers. Oh, are we done? We are done. Alright, give me that. Take that. Put that there. Put that down. So, oh, actually, wait. Hang on. Burp. Almost forgot. Please, push. I want that pink slime somewhere right now. Thank you. Latex. Okay, unlock. So 2 of these. 2 of these. 2 of these. What else was it? Diamond gears, right. Need a full stack of those suckers is what I'm gonna need. Lock that. And we go bump, 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 bump. Alright, and you'll just make... Supposedly you should make 16 of these, and then you'll run out of blaze rods. And then you can... Then I'll grab the sugar. and recode it with sugar. I will also need to make some lenses. Need to make brown lenses. Well, I can make any lens. Okay, so it doesn't really matter. I just need latex and brown. Well, we have the 6 brown dyes that we need, so we just need some more extra glass panes, and then we can make lenses as well. You run out? Well, that was quick. Not the glass panes, the sugar. Oh. Alright, fine. Give me all the things. Take those back. Take the sugar back. Take the redstone back. There we go. There we go. Oh, we should also actually make those ore lasers. No, laser base. Laser drill. Because we are making 16 of these laser drills. So we need 32 pistons. Now what are we short? Gold gears. Gold. Here. Please make some more gold gears. I have refined obsidian dust. Let me, make some more of that. Oh, I'm diamond again. Good thing I've got a crap load of diamonds, eh? Never hurts to have extra refined obsidian on hand. Okay, you done? From Romania? Wow, that's a new one. Part of me wants to answer that just to find out. Yeesh. Alright, give me that, give me that. Alright, you've got these doing things. I'm going to unlock you briefly, then lock you. Give me this. Give me that. Bingo. So we have some brown laser lenses to focus the thing. Did I count wrong? I counted wrong. I need one more lens, one more glass. One more piece of glass pane. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4 more glass panes. Thank you. Alright, so we've got the ore laser base, we've got the 16 efficiencies and 16 speeds, we've got the tesseract, we've got the laser drill. I need some more universals, because I'm not going to have enough. I'd like to have enough. Boom. Not bad to have some more, right? Right. Okay. We've got the pipes. We've got the tesseract. I've not used tesseracts before, so I should probably figure that out first. This tesseract is different than the ones I'm used to. So we can create a channel. Nether. void ore miner. It's a nether. Let's just call it nether mine. And we'll call it energy, and we'll call it nether mine as well. Cool. And then we can connect this one to the nether mine. And then we have active, it goes both ways. Hooray. Cool. Okay, that makes sense. We're not moving fluids, so that's also good. We've got extra latex in there, but I'm going to leave that alone because we don't need it anymore. We just need to make the rest of these ore laser drill. Ta-da! Okay. So, in theory, this can replicate that. I'll set it to Y level 1. And the reason why we're going to set that to Y level 1 is because there's only 2 things I think that I can get in the nether. That's nether quartz and ancient debris. Might be able to get nether gold, but I doubt it. Can I get nether gold? No, it doesn't exist. Okay. So then ancient debris spawns at the Y level 1 to 20, right? And nether quartz, I'm going to take advantage of this. Nether quartz spawns at Y level 7 to 117. So if I go at Y level 5, it's too deep for me to acquire any nether quartz. But it's not deep enough that I don't acquire the ancient debris. So all I should get, theoretically speaking, is ancient debris, which would be good. I am going to grab myself a bunch of cobblestone before I go in there, though. Because I don't want random crap to interrupt me when I'm doing this. And we're not doing this in the depths, because I don't feel like doing this in the depths. We'll do this somewhere where I can relatively easily access it. Ow! Jerk. Oh. I see what happened. Dudes followed me through. They followed me through, but I'm going to take advantage of the fact that I killed said boss down here. Ow. I killed a boss down here. So I'm going to take advantage of that. And I'm going to use this empty space here. All I need to do is surround it with things. I'll just surround it with cobblestone so it's not dangerous. We'll put a bunch of lights down just for good measure, because you never know. I doubt things can spawn in here because it's the nether we're talking about, but I want to, like, better safe than sorry, light the stuff up. Plus, I really don't know what all this redstone is doing down here. There's just some random redstone down here. I don't know what it's doing. Also, that's a mythic. So we're just going to put down a bunch of this stuff, because I just don't want to deal with any of your crap. Okay, excuse me while I grab my gadget. No, not the exchanging gadget. I want the building gadget. Do I have a building gadget? I don't think I made one. No, I did. Okay. Well. Oop. Don't fill in that. It's latched onto my random light orb thing, which is funny. I don't need it to build in that space, nor do I need it to build in this space. That used up a goodly chunk of my cobblestone that I brought with me. Totally okay, though, to be honest. Alright. There we go. Secure! On that side. The other side's all lava, so I feel like that's okay, but just for good measure, we're just going to try and seal that in. And we're not even going to concern ourselves with what kind of blocks we're using. I don't care. Man, and in fast mode, this thing just burrows through this polished blackstone bricks like crazy. It's like it doesn't exist. It's great. Let's light this up a smidge. Oh, right. I forgot that there was this. I should probably close this off. This feels like a bad thing to leave open. Right. I don't need to close it entirely, but let's close that off a little bit. I don't want to deal with that. I'll just take all of this random netherrack remaining here, and let's just use that. This saves me effort. From later. Hooray! This whole place is now secure. Alright, now if I slap down a tesseract, like here, I guess, we can theoretically plug my universal cables to it. Unis. Oop, that's a chain. I have to actually reactivate you each time, do I? Alright, so you've got universals plugged in. It's not plugged in on the other side, that's fine. If we go... grab me some item types. Right, and we put the ore laser base on top of that. And we can shove the laser snare. Right? And then we go... wrench, so we can pull items out. Not quite finished yet. I need to run some energy cables. I actually need this to be up one more block. So if I go laser drill, or facing the wrong direction, of course. Okay, hang on. That is still pointing in the wrong direction. Something like that. Then we can get rid of these in a second here, because we're going to actually need that for a sec. Because now we can just do this. And now we can get rid of this. Okay, and all of them are pointing in. That's perfect. Okay, so now we go boop on each of these. I did this offline last time because I didn't want to bore people. This part is a little bit dull. Excuse me. I just realized I'm sitting shrimpy. Now that I've constructed this, it occurs to me. Oh, good. I was about to say, I was like, did I accidentally overlap? I'd have been mad if that was the case. Alright, chunk, manage, flame, force load. Okay, hold on a second. Home. I need this to be somewhat in a similar location as this, because it needs to power and filter. I want the output over here, to be honest. Where is the power? The power is here. Let's put the Tesseract here. Nether mine, activate. Nether mine, activate. Pull. Right? I don't know what's in it, but it's got things. We'll take a look and see how it's doing. And we'll grab a scrap. Should have some left over. And prime this drawer for the scrap. And then we just go back. Okay, so far so good. So you're getting other things, but we're at the wrong depth. So we'll just crunch you down to down to 5. Look at all this extra stuff we're getting. Are we gonna have to filter you? There's my first ancient debris. In theory, you should only be getting ancient debris, because I don't think anything else really spawns in this depth. Oh, I guess we are. Alright. In which case... slight adjustment. We go over to this Tesseract, and instead of connecting it here, we plug it in here because this is a big sorting machine. Right? And then we will pull this and lock it to ancient debris instead. Because we got an ancient debris from that. Now the question is this... It is not... does not seem to be pushing the way I want it to, though. Items... Spend only. Sorry, that's energy. Receive only. Items send only. See, I've got a second ancient debris from that, but it's not running yet. Does it not like the item pipes? Might not like item pipes. We just pop this up one block. Activate. Activate. Can I push directly? We'll just connect one more universal cable to that. Ah, maybe the other end is not loaded. The other end might not be loaded. I don't know if this end is loaded. Hang on, I didn't check. It's not, that's why. Nope, the whole thing's loaded. It should be loaded. Because I am the only one here, so I'm allowed to load these. Don't care about fluids. I will store things now, though. Yeah, so it's not... The Tesseracts are not running, and I suspect force loading the chunk is also not working. Energy's working, items are not. So it's possible that they don't want me to use a Tesseract for that. You should be receive only with items. You should be send only for energy. Or send only on items. So it's working, but it's not pushing items. Is there a chunk loader I can do? Chunk destroyer, chunk marker. Doesn't look like there's any kind of chunk loader I can do beyond the FTB maps one. Now that might be a config one. Oh, wait, why are you not... Are you showing it's not loaded? No, you're loaded. Do not expire it. That's interesting. I'm inside the chunk, it's loaded. It's claimed. It just doesn't care. Alright. Then we make ender chests, I guess. Because I know those work. I just don't know if they work across dimensions. They make me use diamond chests. Yeah, there was a reason I hung on to those. Okay, and we're gonna set you to a color because I feel like that being a thing. Dye. What kind of dyes do we have? Sure, yellow works. Oh, jeez. These ones work a little bit like shulker boxes. Oops. Activate. Connected, but not. Oh, isn't that interesting? They're connected. They stop receiving power. What? Send and receive should be fine. I don't care about that. Why did the Tesseract stop working? Is there any other source of wireless energy transfer? I would hate for that to be the thing. Active. Don't care. Just say set, send and receive. I don't really care anymore. I'll do this as well, but it doesn't matter. You're connected. It was working, it's just not generating any energy anymore. Maybe it's because I did that sneak right click. Maybe it's because I picked it up. There we go, now it's doing energy. Alright, and then if I just do that, I can't even open it. But it does seem to be pushing, which is fine. So now if I go home, in theory, should be getting all the things pushed. It's already pushing them through, but I now have those three ancient debris that I was looking for. So I'll be getting mostly ancient debris that way. It's not entirely so, but that's the primary source, the primary thing that I wanted from in there. So now if I throw this in the crusher, we get 3, and then we can run that through a variety of machinery to get extras. And then enriched it. And there's my extra netherite. So that's 12 more netherite scrap. Ancient. The netherite scrap, which isn't quite what I need. It's a. Almost. So now I'm just chilling and waiting until the ancient debris does the thing. And what I am going to do for now is I'm going to grab a wrench. Just disconnect that. I want to see if it's even working. Because I have no idea if it's working or not. Oh yeah, it's going still. It's just, yeah. There's a lot of ores in the overworld, in the ore laser. That is, any, which includes nether. We'll just go back. And we'll see if this works by going to 1. Because this might work. We're getting mostly bauxite. Because your laser drill is... what? Y68? Y68 to 84, so you're not helping me at all. Your numbers are way off. So is nickel. It might just be the extra weighting from the laser. Well, what do you specialize for? Nickel, iron, bauxite, debris. Nickel, iron, bauxite, debris. Ah, there's your different... That's why. You have a secondary laser... You have a secondary likelihood. So do you. And they all do. That's rude. That's super rude. I wish I could turn that off. Well, I guess it just means I have 4 targets with the brown laser lens. But it's working. So, I guess I just AFK for a while and see how much ancient debris I get out of this. Because I've gotten 2 so far in the span of the 5 minutes while I was been mucking about with it. And having a source of ancient debris, netherite scrap, not a bad thing. I still want netherite seeds. That will simplify a lot of things. But this is not bad. Because then once I let this just go for a while, I'll have netherite that I need. And I don't mind if it chokes on netherite. Because honestly, if it chokes on netherite, it means if it chokes on ancient debris, it means there's 2,000 ancient debris. But the other 3 objects that come out of it also come out of here. So I don't care. I don't particularly care. This thing's sorted. This is my sorting chest. It goes into this chest, and then it's like, okay, well, these items go into the pulverizer, and it tries to push whatever else it can into the thing. It tries to push whatever else it can into the purifying factory. So it goes up to the purifying factory, right? Right. Then anything else that it can do with these ones, so like diamond ore, emerald ore, coal ore, sulfur ore, etc., 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 stuff that can be pulverized, gets pulverized. I don't care if it's particularly efficient, it's infinite, so I don't care. And then it will extract out of this furnace, which is still electrical, and push it into this drawer, which is this bank. And all of the ores and stuff have void upgrades on them. And at least 1 gold upgrade each, so, like, if I hit that number, it's crazy. In the meantime, look, we got debris up the yin-yang, so that was 9 more. So, now I no longer care about netherite. I'm set, basically, for netherite. I just need to wait for it to grow. I, however, am out of steam, and I need to do some cooking. For the next week prep. So we're going to very quietly dig myself a hole. And then we're going to go AFK. Right there. And I'm going to press the button here. And I've been going for 6.5 hours. That's a lot longer than I'm used to doing, actually, these days. So I'm going to find... Let's see if I can find someone to raid. Who can I raid? Let's see, who's on? I need to, let's see here. Twitch, please. We can raid... Gosh, I don't have anybody to raid. There's lots of people I can raid, but there's nobody I want to raid right now. Can anybody suggest anybody? If you suggest someone and I vet them, that's great. Otherwise, I will just probably end without raiding someone. I like raiding people, but that's entirely optional at this point. Yeah, well. So I'm going to press my mute button. I'm going to say thanks to everybody for joining me. I'll be back in, hopefully in 4 days. We got some furniture and delivery stuff going on this week, so I may or may not be available the whole weekend, because I'm going to be moving my computer stuff around. Which means also that you're going to see a new background behind me at some point. Different wall. It's always going to be a wall. I like having my back to a wall. So, until next time, bye for now.